Imagine a place shrouded in mystery, hidden beneath layers of time and history, untouched by human hands for thousands of years. The location of this secret is so closely guarded that even sacred texts refrain from revealing it. This is the tomb of Moses, the great leader who led his people to freedom. Unlike other biblical figures with documented burial sites, his resting place remains unknown, protected by forces that no one has been able to explain. The scriptures speak of a man chosen by something greater, a man who split the sea, brought plagues upon a kingdom, and carried laws carved in stone. His presence shaped the faith of billions, yet his final chapter was hidden in shadows. Unlike the great rulers of his time, no grand tomb was built in his honor, and no monument stood to mark his legacy. His body was laid to rest in secrecy, concealed from time itself. The account states that his burial was not the work of men, but of divine intervention. His grave was hidden to prevent idolatry, to ensure that people would remember his teachings rather than worship his remains. For centuries, no one has found the place where he was buried. Expeditions combed the deserts, historians scoured ancient texts, and yet nothing surfaced. People have long whispered that Mount Nebo in Jordan is the site of his death, but the land yields no evidence. Although they built a sanctuary in his honor, they never found any remains beneath it. There has been silence surrounding his hidden resting place until now. Recently, a discovery sent shockwaves through the world of archaeology. Beneath the waters of the Sea of Galilee, something impossible was uncovered. A massive stone structure larger than Stonehenge lay hidden beneath the surface. A structure so heavy it could only have been placed there by human hands, yet it predates known civilizations. The monument, whose purpose remains unknown, has been hidden beneath the waves for thousands of years. The weight of the discovery was staggering, 60,000 tons of precisely arranged stone resting in perfect stillness beneath the water. Researchers soon linked the structure to an ancient legend, the Well of Miriam, a source of water that was said to have followed Moses and the Israelites throughout their journey. Vanishing upon the death of his sister, was believed to hold immense spiritual significance. If this submerged monument was truly connected to the biblical account, it meant that it was built in a time when the land was dry, before the sea swallowed it whole. This structure, lying forgotten beneath the water, became a missing puzzle piece in the search for Moses' lost tomb. As the investigation deepened, an unsettling truth emerged. Ancient texts warned against seeking the burial place of Moses. Religious traditions held that his tomb was protected, not just by time, but by forces beyond human understanding. Every civilization that had attempted to locate it had failed. The secrecy was intentional and not a coincidence. Modern technology has provided tools that past generations lacked. Seismic scans, underwater mapping, and satellite imaging allowed researchers to piece together a timeline that had remained hidden for millennia. Evidence suggested that the land beneath the Sea of Galilee was once above water, meaning any structures built there predated the flood that submerged them. The discovery aligned history and legend, demonstrating that time had left something ancient and deliberate untouched beneath the surface. Despite the warnings, the discoveries continue. More ruins have been uncovered near the Nabi Musa Sanctuary in Jordan, a site long associated with Moses. Artifacts linked to the biblical era have surfaced, each one hinting at a connection to the lost prophet. Remember to join our community by subscribing to this channel. But something unsettling lingers around these findings. Unexplainable events, failed expeditions, and cryptic historical records suggest that searching for Moses' tomb is not like any other excavation. For centuries, the Exodus has been told as a mixture of history and legend. A miraculous escape, a people wandering through the desert, a prophet leading them through fire and water. Moses is one of the most striking figures in the sacred texts, but his ultimate fate remains a mystery. The Book of Deuteronomy says he died on Mount Nebo just before the Promised Land. Yet there is no sign of his tomb. There are no relics or traces left behind. It is as if his presence had been erased by time itself. Religious scholars argue that his grave was hidden for a reason. Moses was more than a leader. He was a symbol, a man who spoke to God and carried divine laws to humanity. If his tomb is found, his remains could be worshipped instead of his teachings. To prevent this, his body was buried in secrecy, perhaps by divine will, perhaps by those who feared what would happen if his tomb was ever found. In the early 20th century, biblical scholars began to question the historical accuracy of the Exodus story. Ancient Egyptian records, which document everything from plagues to royal decrees, make no mention of a mass escape of Hebrew slaves. Egyptian writings contain no direct evidence of Moses, leading some to argue that his story evolved into a legend over time. In 1881, an Egyptian tomb known as the Deir el-Medina burial site revealed something shocking: mummified remains of Semitic workers buried separately from Egyptians. These were not royal figures or soldiers. They were laborers, possibly slaves, who lived during the reign of Pharaoh Ramses II, the same era in which many historians believe the Exodus took place. Further excavations in the Sinai Peninsula uncovered ancient settlements that suggest a large group of people once wandered through the desert, leaving behind pottery, tools, and traces of temporary dwellings. The most significant discovery came in 2017 when satellite imagery revealed an ancient dried riverbed stretching from Egypt to Canaan, aligning almost perfectly with the biblical route of the Israelites. The natural formation suggests that a large migration could have taken place, following a path dictated by water sources, just as the story of Moses describes. However, what remains hidden may be the most disturbing aspect of this mystery. The Sea of Galilee has revealed its own secrets, a submerged monument older than recorded history. It is a structure that should not exist, a place that defies explanation. Some researchers have warned against pursuing this mystery further. Every attempt to locate Moses' tomb has led to dead ends, inexplicable failures, and warnings from religious leaders who insist that certain things should remain undiscovered. Throughout history, countless tombs have been found beneath the sands and stones of forgotten lands, some filled with treasures, others with warnings best left undisturbed. But Moses' final resting place is different. Unlike the tombs of Egyptian pharaohs where gold and riches awaited the living, his grave is shrouded in secrecy. In 1922, the world watched in awe as archaeologists uncovered the tomb of Tutankhamun, a discovery that sent shockwaves through history. The artifacts, the inscriptions, the sheer weight of the past uncovered in those chambers, it was as if time had stood still. But with that discovery came something else. Those who entered the tomb faced an eerie fate, one by one, meeting mysterious and untimely deaths. The media called it a curse. Scientists dismissed it as superstition. But deep down, a part of every person who read those reports felt the weight of something more, a warning. Unlike the pharaohs of Egypt, Moses was not a king. He left behind no palace, no wealth, no kingdom of stone and gold. What he left behind was something far more powerful, a legacy that shaped entire civilizations. His words became law, his teachings a foundation upon which faiths were built. Those who have tried are aware of the potential dangers of such a discovery. The Bible itself hints at the risks, warning that his burial site was meant to be hidden. If something sacred lies within those forgotten chambers, something beyond comprehension, the consequences of its exposure could be unimaginable. Moses' story is one of the most compelling stories in history, blending themes of faith, freedom, and divine power. It begins with his return to Egypt, a land that had once been his home but was now the site of immense suffering for his people, the Hebrews. After fleeing Egypt years earlier, Moses encountered God in the form of a burning bush on Mount Horeb, where he received a divine mission to lead the Israelites out of slavery and into the Promised Land. Armed with this purpose and accompanied by his brother Aaron, Moses confronted Pharaoh, demanding the release of the Hebrew people. Pharaoh, the most powerful man in Egypt, dismissed Moses' plea. The idea of freeing an entire nation of slaves was unthinkable to him. The Hebrews were essential to Egypt's economy and construction projects, and their sudden departure would disrupt the balance of power. Pharaoh's heart was hardened both by his own stubbornness and, according to the biblical account, by God's will to demonstrate his power through Egypt's downfall. What followed were the infamous 10 plagues of Egypt, each one a direct challenge to the Egyptian gods and a step closer to the liberation of the Israelites. The first plague struck at the heart of Egyptian life, the Nile River, their primary water source. Moses, following God's command, instructed Aaron to stretch out his staff over the waters. Instantly, the river and all water sources in Egypt turned to blood. Fish died, and the river emitted a foul stench, making the water undrinkable. This was not only a physical disaster, but also a spiritual affront, as the Nile was considered sacred in Egyptian religion. Despite the severity of this plague, Pharaoh remained unmoved. The second plague brought an infestation of frogs. Frogs emerged from the rivers and spread across Egypt, invading homes, bedrooms, and kitchens. This plague mocked the Egyptian goddess Heket, who was associated with fertility and was often depicted with a frog's head. Though Pharaoh briefly relented, asking Moses to pray for the frogs to disappear, he hardened his heart again once the plague subsided. The third plague was lice, which arose from the dust of the ground and afflicted both people and animals. This infestation was particularly humiliating for the Egyptians, who placed a high value on cleanliness and ritual purity. Even Pharaoh's magicians, who had previously replicated the earlier plagues through their own tricks, could not replicate this one. They admitted to Pharaoh that this was the finger of God, but he still refused to free the Israelites. Next came the fourth plague, swarms of flies. These flies descended upon Egypt, sparing only the land of Goshen, where the Israelites lived. The flies invaded homes, corrupted food supplies, and created an unbearable environment. The distinction between the Egyptians and the Israelites demonstrated God's power to protect his chosen people while punishing their oppressors. Despite the suffering, Pharaoh remained obstinate. Are you enjoying the story? Support our channel by clicking the subscribe button. The fifth plague targeted Egypt's livestock. Horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, sheep, and goats died en masse. This devastated Egypt's agricultural economy and food supply, striking at the heart of the nation's wealth and stability. Pharaoh investigated and found that not a single animal belonging to the Israelites had been harmed, yet his resolve did not waver. The sixth plague brought painful boils and ulcers to the Egyptians. Moses and Aaron took handfuls of soot from a furnace and scattered it into the air, causing festering sores to break out on people and animals alike. The Egyptian magicians, who had once tried to counter Moses' signs, were now powerless, unable even to stand before Moses because of their afflictions. Despite this personal suffering, Pharaoh remained defiant. The seventh plague escalated the destruction with a hailstorm unlike any Egypt had ever seen. Hail mixed with fire rained down, shattering trees, destroying crops, and killing any unprotected person or animal in the open fields. This plague directly challenged the Egyptian sky goddess Nut and the storm god Seth. Pharaoh, momentarily shaken, admitted his guilt and begged Moses to stop the storm. But once the skies cleared, his heart hardened once more. The eighth plague introduced locusts that devoured whatever the hail had left behind. These insects covered the ground until it was black, consuming every remaining plant and tree. Egypt's landscape, once fertile and rich, was now barren and desolate. Pharaoh's officials, witnessing the collapse of their nation, urged him to release the Israelites. But Pharaoh's pride held firm. The 10th and final plague was the most devastating, the death of the Egyptian firstborns. This plague struck at the heart of every Egyptian household, from the lowliest servant to Pharaoh's own palace. God instructed the Israelites to mark their doorposts with the blood of a lamb, so that the angel of death would pass over their homes, sparing their firstborns. At midnight, death swept through Egypt, and there was not a house without a corpse. The grief was overwhelming, and Pharaoh, broken at last, ordered the Israelites to leave immediately. The Exodus began that very night. The Israelites, after generations of bondage, were finally free. They left Egypt in haste, carrying their belongings and the unleavened bread that would become symbolic of their journey. However, Pharaoh's heart hardened one final time, and he pursued them with his army. This led to the climactic moment when Moses, standing at the edge of the Red Sea, parted the waters through God's power, allowing the Israelites to cross on dry ground. When Pharaoh's forces followed, the waters crashed down, drowning the Egyptian army and sealing the Israelites' escape. After the dramatic escape from Egypt and the miraculous crossing of the Red Sea, Moses led the Israelites through the harsh wilderness, guided by pillars of cloud by day and fire by night. Their journey was not just a physical exodus from slavery, but a spiritual transformation, as they moved from being a group of oppressed people to becoming a nation bound by a covenant with God. This covenant was solidified at Mount Sinai, a pivotal moment in biblical history where Moses would receive the 10 Commandments, laws that would shape not only the future of Israel, but also influence moral and legal codes around the world. When the Israelites arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai, the mountain itself was cloaked in smoke and thunder, symbolizing the overwhelming presence of God. The people set up camp at the foot of Mount Sinai, and the prophet ascended the mountain to have direct conversations with God. It was on this sacred ground that God declared his intentions for the Israelites, offering them a unique covenant. They would be his chosen people, a holy nation set apart from all others, provided they obeyed his commandments. The people, still in awe from their recent deliverance from Egypt, eagerly agreed to this covenant, pledging their loyalty to God. God then called Moses higher up the mountain, where he remained for 40 days and 40 nights. During this time, God inscribed his laws on 2 stone tablets, known as the Tablets of the Law, which contained the 10 Commandments. These commandments were more than mere rules. They were divine principles, meant to govern the moral and spiritual life of the people. The first 4 commandments focused on the Israelites' relationship with God, emphasizing monotheism, reverence, and the sanctity of the Sabbath. The remaining 6 addressed social behavior, promoting respect for parents, the sanctity of life, fidelity, honesty, and justice. If you're enjoying this content and want to support our work, hit that super thanks. Your support helps us keep bringing hidden stories to light and sharing powerful messages with you. Despite witnessing countless miracles, including their liberation from Egypt and the parting of the Red Sea, their faith wavered in his prolonged absence. Fearful that their leader had abandoned them, they turned to Aaron, Moses' brother, demanding a new object of worship. Aaron, succumbing to their pressure, collected gold from the people and fashioned a golden calf, proclaiming it as the God who had brought them out of Egypt. The people rejoiced, offering sacrifices and engaging in revelry, breaking the very covenant they had just made with God. Meanwhile, on the mountain, God informed Moses of the people's betrayal, expressing his anger and readiness to destroy them. He, however, pleaded with God to show mercy, reminding him of the promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God relented, but Moses descended the mountain with a heavy heart, carrying the stone tablets in his hands. As he approached the camp and saw the people dancing around the golden calf, his anger burned fiercely. In a dramatic act of righteous indignation, he hurled the stone tablets to the ground, shattering them at the foot of the mountain. This act symbolized the breaking of the covenant between God and the Israelites. Moses then took the golden calf, ground it into powder, scattered it on the water, and made the Israelites drink it, forcing them to confront the bitterness of their sin. He rebuked Aaron for his weakness and failure to lead the people with integrity, highlighting the gravity of their idolatry. To restore order, he stood at the entrance of the camp and called for those who were still loyal to God to come forward. The Levites, a tribe known for their priestly duties, responded to his call. He instructed them to purify the camp by eliminating those who had led the rebellion, resulting in the deaths of about 3,000 people. This harsh punishment underscored the seriousness of their betrayal and the need for accountability in maintaining the covenant with God. Despite this, he understood that the relationship between God and the Israelites needed healing. He returned to Mount Sinai to intercede on behalf of the people, offering himself as a sacrifice if God would forgive their sins. Once again, Moses spent 40 days and nights on the mountain, fasting and praying for the people's redemption. God, moved by his devotion, agreed to renew the covenant, but warned that he would not tolerate future disobedience. Thanks for watching. Join our community by subscribing to this channel until the next video.